What up, my fellow NBA lovers? This is your guy, Marcellus Ease. And the Clippers finally had decided to pull the trigger on hiring Tyronn Lue, which I don't know why they had this whole extensive search in which Tyronn Lue was best fit for the job. This guy came into Cleveland when they had pressures to win right away, and it's the same scenario playing out right now. But I thought it was very interesting before I touch base on this segment right here that Steve Ballmer had actually mentioned that they did a search for the best coaches, but then admitted that Tyronn Lue was the best coach the whole time. I wonder if he really feels this way.
I wanted to make sure, particularly for me, as somebody who's never been involved in a coaching search, that we went out and met the best and brightest coaches from around the NBA. And I'll tell you, I was super impressed. With that said, while there were a lot of great coaches, we had to get the best of the best. And the best of the best is Ty Lue.
Now, you guys check out this segment right here, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Clippers have found a coach. He's a good one. He's a familiar one. LA tapping Ty Lue to take over a team that came woefully short of a title this year. Ty knows a thing or two about leading a team to a title in his first season. Got to the finals 3 straight seasons in Cleveland before moving on to LA.
Now, if you guys look at most of these highlights right here, you'll see the Clippers, everything is kind of after steals, but you just look at the whole flow of the game. There's no point guard setting up these guys. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are creating their own shots. And this is kind of one of the major issues with this team right now. So continuing on, you're going to see just a bunch of handoff screens. It's not a real flow of an offense.
Of course, then he had LeBron. Now he has Kawhi. And now we have Chris Broussard. All right, Broussard, good morning. Thanks for being with us. Gotta ask.
See right there, when they really needed offense against Denver, that little handoff screens and just guys, dribbling, isoing, and just taking a step back three, none of that stuff worked when you really need buckets and you're down by 15. That was one of the major issues with the Clippers. They really need that point guard to start setting them up. And they wanted, Lou Williams to come in and step in and do that real quick in the Denver series, and it did not end up working out.
Anything change for the Clippers now that they have hired Ty Lue to be their new head coach?
Absolutely. Look, whoever they had hired, if Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and those other players who will be back have competitive bones in their body, they were going to come back humbled and motivated to redeem themselves. They were the biggest disappointment of the season.
Yes, especially Paul George. I don't know what kind of playoff performance that was.
So they got to come back as competitors, more humble, ready to work harder, ready to develop more chemistry. Kawhi's got to do away with at least some of the load management. So I think that's a plus. But then let's bring in Ty Lue.
Now, that load management is an actual Clippers issue. The fact that they let him walk in the building and get all these perks, and they basically setting the tone for their star to be kind of almost nonchalant or just in cruise control. It's not a good, dictate of basically the culture for the rest of the team, because that stuff trickles down. If the star buys in, how hard he's working, if he's playing D, the rest of the players on the team tend to pick that up. And you can tell the Clippers this season, they just been kind of coasting the whole time.
One thing I consistently heard about Doc Rivers was that he would not hold his stars accountable. And that rubbed the other players the wrong way and disrupted the chemistry. Now Ty Lue, everyone says about Ty, he is not afraid to hold superstars accountable. If he held LeBron James accountable, he can hold Kawhi Leonard and Paul George accountable.
Yeah, and hopefully Kawhi Leonard doesn't send Tyronn Lue to the hospital like when he was coaching LeBron James.
That in and of itself will be a big help. We know the team has talent. There's no question about that. I think this is a good move for the Clippers. I'm not ready to make a prediction yet, but I think they'll be better this year than they were last year.
All right, let me start with Ty. I am so happy for Ty Lue. He is a great guy. He's an excellent coach.
There should be no reason for guys to be happy for Tyronn Lue. He qualified for the job. He's been in this scenario before. A must win, come in, there's a lot of pressure. The previous coach got fired because he didn't live up to expectations. And expectations were really high, especially with a superstar like LeBron James. I don't know why there was this whole extensive search and, oh man, Tyronn Lue, he deserves it. Oh, I'm so happy for him. This shouldn't be the sentiment. He was the best qualified candidate.
And he held out for what he deserved salary-wise and contract length-wise, and it worked out to his advantage. And he still gets to live in LA, and unlike if he were coaching the Lakers, his seasons are going to be about a month shorter than if he were coaching the Lakers. Yeah. So it's more money and less work. So that's good. So I'm happy for my buddy Ty. Now, as far as how much of an impact will this make, Chris Broussard, I have a very quick question for you. You've been on television for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. How many times you been late to a show?
God, I don't even know.
Maybe
if once,
never?
Maybe once. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Maybe never.
So I would say for us to see a cultural shift with the Clippers, I would say step one for Ty Lue is to tell Kawhi, you either got to move from San Diego or you got to set the alarm clock a little bit earlier.
See, Nick Wright is kind of touching based on what I said before. Starting with the superstar, if he buys into everything, the rest of the guys, it's a trickle-down effect. The rest of the guys, if he buys into defense, they're going to play defense. If he buys into showing up to practice early, working out late, the rest of the guys are going to buy in. He buys into the coaching philosophies. He doesn't give any pushback. The rest of the guys tend to follow suit. Nick Wright is kind of touching base on this.
Because what was discussed in the Jovan Buha athletic report was one of the reasons folks on the Clippers felt Kawhi got special treatment was he couldn't even be bothered to show up to team flights on time all the time.
Yeah, he seems pretty disconnected. Living all in San Diego, come on, man. Come on. Got to be closer connected to guys.
So it wasn't just load management. It wasn't just practice when you want to practice. It's everyone's waiting on you to get here. And so it's one thing if Kawhi Leonard, Brandon, doesn't want to be a vocal leader.
Yep.
That's not who he is. Fine. It's another thing entirely if his actions are displaying either a lack of seriousness or a feeling of the rules don't apply to me at all, as basic as when the team plane is leaving. And I do think...
You know, that's the issue Steve Ballmer has to correct. That's a cultural issue within the organization. It doesn't really start with the coaching. That doesn't really fall on Doc Rivers. They're letting him slide and do all that. They kind of set the tone during the free agency, just sending all those draft picks away. The Clippers are kind of in bondage to Kawhi Leonard right now.
Broussard is absolutely right, Brandon, that it starts with Ty holding him accountable for those things at the very least if they're going to have a cultural shift in Los Angeles with the Clippers, Brandon.
100%. I absolutely love this hire. When I saw this on our sheet of what we're going to discuss today, I thought about 2016. And I think everybody remember this moment because it was an interesting moment. 2016, the NBA Finals, the Cavaliers against the Warriors. On the bench, 2 minutes, 27 seconds left. Ty Lue tells LeBron, shut that up. Do you remember that moment, Nick? So when you talk about holding your players accountable,
oh, he better be careful talking to Kawhi Leonard like that. He may go RoboCop on him.
Like, Ty Lue was able to do that with LeBron. So when you think about Kawhi and whether it's moved from San Diego and back to L.A. and set your alarm or, you know, maybe we need to push you a little bit more. There's nobody that's more comfortable doing that outside of Ty Lue. They went in a locker room in that game. And it was the same conversation. LeBron James is going around to Damon Jones and then his teammate James Jones, and Ty Lue comes back out and says, shut up.
See? That type of back and forth, man, that shit ended up giving Tyronn Lue high blood pressure, man. He went to the hospital for some reason. And the anxiety or just the back and forth, man, it was overwhelming.
This is my team. And they go on to win it. So I love Ty Lue because you talk about accountability and there's nobody better. But then there's another name, Paul George. And our producer, Charles, here on the show, there's nobody better about discussing the Clippers than him. He grew up a Clippers fan. So when I'm like, yo, so who do you think is the bigger problem? And his first response was Paul George. Like, that is the guy in the locker room that seems not to mesh with everyone else.
Now, Paul George, man, he's going to have to get his mental right. Him going into the bubble talking about, you know, his mental was off. I thought that didn't make any sense because he was giving his opponent some ammunition during the games to get into his head. Talking about it was really mentally tough to be in the bubble and my mental's not right now. Like, that's not a good sign.
So you insert Chauncey Billups. Chauncey Billups is that guy that can probably move him emotionally. For me as a player, it wasn't always the head coach. It wasn't always the wide receiver coach. Sometimes it was Todd Bowles in Miami, the defensive coordinator, that was able to move me emotionally and push me.
Yeah, Chauncey Billups could probably relate to Paul George on a more human level. Billups seems to have that type of leadership skills. That's a very underrated leadership skill. You have to kind of be different with everyone. Not everyone just is under an overall archetype for leadership. Just like, oh, do this and everyone should fall in line. Sometimes each individual needs a different approach to when a leader approaches them and you know, kind of molds them or trying to have them do something or get to a higher level.
And when I went to the Jets, it was Brent Boyer, our special teams coach. So I really like this combination. I think if they clean this up, they can easily be back where they're supposed to be next year. And that's in trouble. And your Lakers in trouble.
Oh, boy. I
So
also love
they
the
shouldn't have
Chauncey
blown him up.
hire,
All right.
Broussard. Oh, wow.
Yes.
But Broussard, I don't think they need a full demolition, because if they did, I think Tyronn Lue would have gone and joined the Pelicans with David Griffin. I think.
No, they don't need a demolition, but they do need addition. They need to fix that point guard, and also they need to get somebody to defend Jokic, because Jokic is going to change the whole dynamic of that Western Conference. A big man that can pass, that can do no-look passes like that, look guys off, and get other guys into position to get layups and score. The Clippers are going to have to get something to answer that, and they're not the only team in the Western Conference that's going to have to figure that out. A lot of these teams playing small ball, they're going to have to figure out something to handle Jokic.
He looked at it and said, like, you know what? We just need a slight remodeling. We need to move 10%, and I think I can do it just like I did it with the Cavs. I think the Chauncey hire, it didn't get the big headline, but I think it's a very important hire. Like, I got to work with Chauncey a lot at NBA Countdown. If Chauncey was like, hey, Kevin, we're going to go to Mount Everest, I'm like, all right, I'll follow you up Mount Everest. He's that type of leader. I've talked to him about, like, personal stuff, career stuff. I've talked to him about what it's like to own a Wendy's franchise, which he owns a few of.
Yeah, Chauncey Billups, once again, he has a different characteristic, just a different style of leadership. Like, he brings a different, more humanized approach to just being in that leadership position, which is going to work out great for this team right now.
The other good, interesting thing about not just how he's going to relate to Paul George, you think about it, Broussard, there's only been 31 guys who have won Finals MVP. Kawhi's won it, and Chauncey has won it. So the idea that Chauncey can relate to Kawhi on a different level, because that is the most select group of all select groups. The one thing I want to push back on you, Broussard, is this. With the season, we don't know what the season's going to look like. Maybe it starts in late January, maybe it starts in February. We don't know how it's going to play out. I don't know if the answer is Kawhi has to play more games. It doesn't feel like he wants to do that, and it feels like you'd be walking into a fight right away. I would rather take the tack that Toronto take, like, hey, what are we going to do? Let's make it work.
You know, they're going to have to announce what's going on with Kawhi, man, because this injury, this lagging injury that he keeps having, that's lingering on and on and on. I mean, when does it ever heal? I mean, of course, they're going to load manage Kawhi probably towards the end of the season, but come on, man. Like, it's almost been 3 years, bro.
The Clippers chemistry issue on his load management issues, I think that's not the right move. I think load management is just what you're getting with this guy.
And they're also going to have to figure out, in case they go back into another bubble next season, Paul George just mentioning his mental inside of a bubble is just not right. They got to figure that out, because he's got to get right, because it's most likely looking like they're going to enter another bubble heading into next season with no fans. So Paul George, man, he's got to get right, man, mentally.
No, I'm not saying that was the cause of the chemistry issues, but it sets a bad tone for the team, because it's like we can drop Kawhi in every, 2 out of every 3 games and be fine. No, this is the NBA. You need to develop chemistry. We saw that, period. The Clippers, Anthony Davis played through injuries. LeBron played through nicks and knocks and things like that. And we saw what happened with them. Kawhi's got to come back ready to play. I don't think they may not play 82. But if they do, 70 to 75 games. You can't be missing 20 games if you're not really injured.
1,000%
and they can't coach they can't coach Kawhi scared. Because Kawhi, I know he's got, he can leave after next season. He's not going anywhere.
Kawhi got to make sure that he approaches the next season the same way LeBron approached the Lakers this season, in which he knew he had a set of guys, high expectations. He knew the chemistry wasn't there. So he bought in right away from day one, from training camp on, to make sure everybody was on the same page so they could put themselves in the best position to win. Kawhi got to approach the next season the same exact way, as if this is a whole new team, a whole new set of guys, and a whole new mentality to bring in, because they got to get to that next level right now.
He's from Southern California. He's been to 2 other teams already. Where's he going?
Yep.
He wanted to be in
No,
LA.
I think that's
He'll
right.
stay.
I just want to add one other thing. I think they're smart to hire Tyronn Lue. We'll see what happens with Kawhi if he adjusts his routine, if you will. But if all of that goes perfectly, if the Clippers do not get bigger, they are drawing dead against the Lakers. This was forgotten in them blowing a 3-1 lead to the Nuggets. But with Anthony Davis playing at this level, with the Lakers having this much size, the Clippers roster, as currently constituted, Jenna, is inherently flawed. And that, no matter who the coach is, unless they address some rim protection, they've got no shot whatsoever.
No, they do have a shot, but Nick Wright is actually right here, because they're going to have to retool this roster. And it's not only just the Lakers with Anthony Davis playing big. They got to worry about Jokic. Like I said, Jokic is going to change that whole conference, because this guy is an ultimate threat. He will shoot threes. He'll act like a point guard and put other guys in position, not even just looking other defenders off and getting other guys open, just because he's not even looking at them, but he already knows where they're at. And he's going to put a crisp pass right to that person. Jokic is very dangerous. And also, he's a 7-footer, so he can get rebounds. That guy's going to change the whole conference. So they got to find some sort of scenario to guard this guy. And then they also got to get a point guard to set guys up. Because if the Clippers are down, just relying on Kawhi Leonard and Paul George just doing dinks and dunk handoffs and screens and just isoing to get, to come back, it's not going to work out.
So this is a good first step, but the roster needs to be retooled somewhat as well.
Definitely, the roster definitely has to be retooled. Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell. Montrezl Harrell could even really guard Jokic like that. They got to figure that out. If they're going to renew some of these guys and that point guard situation, maybe they could get guys like Kyle Lowry or Drew Holiday, something. They need at least, they don't need an all-star level point guard, but they just need someone to set guys up, because this whole Kawhi Leonard, just isoing and coming off of screens and have to create his offense, that's not his game. And then Paul George, the same thing. It's just isoing a bunch of step backs. It's not really their game. And their owner, man, he definitely wants that Larry O'Brien trophy. The expectations are really high.
The only thing that matters is the Larry O.B.
Yeah, it's all going to be about that.
I got to say, being number 2, being number 4, we're only here for one reason. We want to win it all. There's only one reason.
Yeah, being number 2 is not going to be an option. Till next time, you guys stay safe. Peace.